This is One-on-One. Hi, Steve Adubato. We're coming to you from the New Jersey State Senate Chamber. We're talking to legislative leaders on a very important day. It is, in fact, February 24th. The governor is going to be delivering his budget address in just a little bit. We're here with one of the legislative leaders on the Democratic side. He's the Deputy Speaker. He's John Wisniewski. He is the chair of the Transportation and very independent Authorities Committee. Good to see you, John.
Good to see you, Steve.
Now, we wake up to, well, we didn't wake up to it. It happened yesterday. The Judge Mary Jacobson, talked about the pension situation. The state has no choice but to fund about $1.56 billion into the state fund, which wasn't in there last time. We'll talk about that in a second.
Sure.
But I also wake up to this. The Star Ledger, our colleagues at the Ledger report this. New Jersey, 6th in nation in worst bridges because of your expertise on the transportation side. Translate that. What does that mean, Assemblyman? We have the 6th worst bridges in the nation?
It means we haven't been funding our bridge program. We haven't been funding our transportation capital program the way we should, which means we're just not getting to the repairs, to the upkeep that we need to do on our infrastructure. And this stuff gets a lot of wear and tear. We are the most densely populated state in the nation. We've got a lot of traffic through our state. We need the money. We don't have the money, and that creates the problem.
But Assemblyman, this has been going on a long time. The Transportation Trust Fund, which is talked about a lot but little understood, it runs out of money on the last day of June.
June 30th.
The last day of June. This money funds the roads and the bridges. Okay, it was set aside.
And mass transit.
And mass transit, set aside in 1984, I believe.
Right.
To do this, and everyone knew it was running out of money. As we speak today, and by the time this program airs, hopefully there's a solution. What's your bet? Will there be?
I hope there's a solution.
But should that solution, in your opinion, be a raising of the gas tax?
We have to have new money. Look, Steve, the problem we're in today is exactly for that reason. We have relied on essentially a status quo input, but created ever increasing amounts of output, and to the point where we've spent over $11 billion more than we've taken into the Transportation Trust Fund. That translates into debt.
But we saw that happening.
Right.
So why just keep doing that?
Because no one wanted to really tackle the tough issue of raising the revenue necessary to do it. You can't build a bridge.
Tax.
Yeah, well,
was there another tax? I don't know about?
I mean, we use some sales tax money for the Transportation Trust Fund. We use gas tax money. We use registration fees. It's a pot. Largest single source is motor fuels tax, petroleum gross receipts tax, gas tax, diesel tax. But that has largely stayed static. We've made some increases to it, but largely static while we've spent ever increasing sums of money. When I got into the legislature in 1996, the annual capital program was $640 million. It's now $1.6 billion. That represents almost all borrowed money. As I said, we've put some additional money in. There's been an institutional reluctance to address the fact that you can't build these things without new money. So we've borrowed the money, and now we have to pay it back.
Assemblyman, devil's advocate, the latest Eagleton poll, the latest poll that I've seen on this, from Monmouth University, says that most New Jerseyans
they're against this.
Do not support the idea of raising the gas tax. And so what would you say if someone said, wait, legislators and the governor are simply responding to the, quote, will of the people by not wanting to increase the gas tax, and how could you criticize them for that?
Well, leadership's not putting your finger in the air and seeing which way the wind's blowing. Leadership is understanding what the obligations of the state are, not only today, but tomorrow and for generations to come, and making sure we're providing for those obligations. Making sure our infrastructure is sound is important, not just because we have to go to and from work and we don't want to spend $600 or $1,000 a year fixing our car, but so much of our economy is dependent on transportation. We have one of the world's largest waterborne facilities, the port, Elizabeth and Newark. We have one of the world's largest air cargo facilities. They require transportation infrastructure to get the goods out. If we don't invest in that transportation infrastructure, we lose jobs over the long run. We hurt our economic standing. This is about self-defense economically.
Even if the public says, don't charge us more at the pump?
We have to do a better job at explaining what's necessary. We have to do a better job at convincing the public on how this is an investment in their future.
Say we don't do this.
If we don't do this, what we will have is a deteriorating infrastructure. We will have fewer trains on time. We will have less rail capacity. We will have roads that decay quicker than we can repair them. We will potentially have catastrophic failures in bridges. I mean, these are things that we have to be prepared for. Look,
is this a matter of life and death?
Ultimately,
it's happened in other bridges across this country that have been in disrepair.
I don't want
that people have died because those roads, those bridges were not repaired, and things happen. I'm not predicting. I hope, we pray it doesn't happen. Right. But it's not as if it hasn't happened.
It's a possibility. It's a possibility. None of us can predict when a critical piece of infrastructure and a bridge that holds everything up is going to fail because of rust or rot or neglect. And we have to prepare to make sure that doesn't happen. But we can't do it by wishing it away. We can't do it by hoping it away. We have to have money from some source. And so our debate really should be, what's the fairest way to raise this money? Who are the fairest payers of this money? Somebody's going to have to pay to fix the roads and bridges. It's not going to happen by accident.
As I said, we're taping on the 24th of February. We're not going to date ourselves. We're going to be talking about issues that are not going to be solved anytime soon. And so one of the issues the Assemblyman is not going to be surprised they bring up involves independent authorities. The biggest is?
The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
Now, how is that different than the Delaware River Port Authority? Explain that to folks, because one is on the New Jersey, Pennsylvania side, and the other one is New Jersey, Pennsylvania, right?
Right.
And the other one is New York, New Jersey.
Right.
Why is the other one from the 1921 compact between New York and New Jersey, Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, why is it so much bigger and more important?
Well, it is physically bigger. It controls a lot more. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Kennedy Airport, LaGuardia Airport, Newark Airport, Atlantic City, Stewart, Path.
Holland Tunnel, Lincoln Tunnel, George Washington Bridge, go ahead.
Ports.
Matters.
It's big. It's huge, right? The budget of the Port Authority is larger than 26 states. The Delaware Port Authority that you're talking about, New Jersey and Pennsylvania, same type of agency, much smaller in scope, much smaller in reach. Certainly some of the same issues, but the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey is so big and the issues are so pervasive that it's the one that's caught everybody's attention.
Biggest, Assemblyman, being the biggest problem from your point of view,
well, it's
in terms of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which you believe must be changed, is?
The biggest problem is that it has a spending problem that is beyond its capacity to maintain. Their own internal report said that the Port Authority does not have enough revenue coming in to meet all of the promises the Port Authority has made. Part of the problem is it's become a real estate empire. Remember, the Port Authority was started as an agency to facilitate transportation between two jurisdictions, New York and New Jersey.
Trans-Hudson.
It's now become a real estate empire. The World Trade Center, it is a landlord in both New York and New Jersey with lots and lots of property. That's not what that was designed for. The private sector is very able to handle real estate. We don't need a government agency to be involved in that. That sucks resources out of the Port Authority, a lot of resources.
You worried about patronage?
Well, patronage is a big problem in every government agency.
But patronage at the Port Authority has been going on well before Governor Christie appointed certain people at the Port Authority. And I'm not saying that's patronage, but the fact is Governor Christie has appointed people there. Governor Cuomo has appointed people there. Governor Corzine before him.
Sure.
Governor Whitman.
Everybody.
And Governor
Go back to the 20s.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Right.
Should governors of each state be able to put their person, their people at the Port Authority? Because you have New York, New Jersey. Isn't that another way of saying that's how New Jersey's interests are going to be protected?
Well, I mean, there's a big gap between saying, should they be able to appoint their people in critical management positions?
Sure.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. But the question is how much is enough? How much is necessary? Does it get to a point now where you're creating management positions just to have management positions?
Do you think that's what's happening?
Well, if you look at the size of the management of the Port Authority, it certainly defies expectations as to why you need that scope of management for an agency with the focus that it's supposed to have. I think they can do better if you look at the salaries, if you look at the way the compensations are arranged there. They certainly can do better, but the real problem with the Port Authority is its mission creep. We have an agency that originally had a jurisdiction so many miles from the Statue of Liberty, now has an airport in Atlantic City, which is far beyond its original mission. Stewart Airport, which is not performing as anticipated, again, beyond its original mission. The real estate, again, beyond its original mission. It's a transportation agency and ought to act like one.
Real quickly, make this matter to the people watching us right now in the multi-state area, particularly in New Jersey.
Sure.
Who say, all right, so that's inside baseball. That doesn't involve me. Well,
no.
Make the case.
Okay, if you work in New York and you live in New Jersey, you earn about $100,000 a year, you pay more in tolls to the Port Authority than you pay in income tax to the state of New Jersey. Let me say that again. If you earn about $100,000 a year, you work in Manhattan, you live in New Jersey, you drive across the bridge or you take the tunnel every day, you pay more in tolls to the Port Authority every year than you pay in income tax to the state of New Jersey.
So
that's
those
out of
dollars
control.
and how they're spent matter a great deal.
Absolutely.
1 minute real quick. We're going to fix this pension thing?
We have to fix it. And here's how we're going to fix it, by recognizing that there's an obligation that was created, perhaps not by Chris Christie, perhaps not by this sitting legislature. It's been created. It's an obligation of the state of New Jersey. We have to be very careful about walking away from the obligations the state creates. If we walk away from this obligation today, we will create the expectation that the state of New Jersey may walk away from its other obligations in the future. And what obligations would they be? Are we going to walk away from our obligation to educate our children? Are we going to walk away from our obligation to make sure that people have adequate health care? We're going to walk away from our obligation to make sure that our roads and bridges and mass transit are safe. We can't walk away and cherry pick which obligations we're going to live up to.
We have to deal with this.
Yeah, we may say we wish we didn't make those obligations, and that's a valid lament, but it's an obligation that we have to live up to.
Assemblyman John Wisniewski, the chair of the Independent Authorities Committee, along with Transportation, critically important. And the Deputy Speaker, I want to thank you for joining us on this series looking and talking to the legislative leaders. We're here in the Senate chamber, and we appreciate it, Assemblyman.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks. Stay with us. We'll be right back right after this.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by Barnabas Health, the New Jersey Education Association, New Jersey's credit unions, NJ Best, Fedway Associates, Community Education Centers, the Northeast Regional Council of Carpenters, and by these public-spirited organizations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the important issues facing the Garden State, and by Employers Association of New Jersey.